Hey, everybody, welcome to another Wild Western Wednesday here at the Rebel Roundup, your daily news and opinion show from your besties at Rebel News. Joining me today, I'm Lise, Merle, by the way. Joining me today are two of your favorite Rebel women. We have Drea Humphrey coming to us from British Columbia. Good morning, Drea.
Good morning. Glad to be alive.
And everybody knows who this is. This is Canada's favorite grandma and freedom fighter, Tamara Lich. Tamara, good morning.
Hi, good morning, ladies.
Good morning. Well, just before we kick off, I wanted to quickly get the people of Canada up to date on a really unique project that our friend Tamara Lich is working on. Tamara Lich, can you tell
Yes,
us a little bit about what you're doing?
absolutely. Well, I posted yesterday that I've filed a lawsuit against the Ottawa Police Services, the Ottawa Police Services Board, the Attorney General of Ontario, the two homicide detectives on my case, the Crown Prosecutor, and King Charles III in right of Ontario for malicious prosecution and negligent investigation. And it was kind of a struggle deciding to do this. This is obviously a very scary undertaking. It is a civil suit, so there's no other, civil liberties agencies that can help. So I launched a crowdfund yesterday, and I think it's all already just about reached $20,000. So that's really exciting. There's a lot of support out there, and the reason that I launched it wasn't for myself. It is because no Canadian should be treated the way that I was treated
Mhm.
with regards to how they dealt with that breach. There was no investigation into the photo of myself, the group photo that ended up landing me in jail. Not even a phone call to my lawyer, and it's really unheard of to be denied bail. Well, and the most egregious thing was a Canada-wide warrant was issued for my arrest, which has never been done before in Canada
Wow.
for a mischief. Canada-wide warrants are something that's reserved for murderers and rapists and
Sure.
repeat offenders. So that was quite shocking. There's a lot of things about the way that they handled my case that are highly questionable, and I want to make sure that this never happens to another Canadian
Big.
again. Everybody deserves equal treatment under the law. They deserve due process and they deserve due diligence. So it's going to be a long endeavor, but I'm really excited to at least have the lawsuit off the ground, and I'm looking forward to disclosure.
Well, honey, the truth always comes out in the wash. And here you
It
are, the
does.
laundry woman, just making it happen. So, can you tell people where they can find your crowdfunding site? How can they find this? How can they support you in this pursuit?
Absolutely. Yes, you can find I've started a Give Send Go campaign. Obviously with my experience with the other one, that was never going to happen again. And I've had great experience and personal experience with Give Send Go. So there's a campaign on Give Send Go. You can also find it on my website at officialtamaralich.com. And I will definitely be posting regular updates to my X account, my Facebook account, and my Substack.
Well, thanks so much for that, everybody. You heard her. Tamara Lich is getting to the bottom of exactly what happened during that terrible time of COVID, and this is
Yes.
just another way how. Before we get into the meat and bones of the program, and we introduce our guest, who, by the way, everybody, do your seatbelts up. Okay, this is a firecracker of a person. Last week we talked about having to increase relationships between Saskatchewan, Alberta, and our cousins of Quebec. And today's guest, oh, we couldn't have got a better voice to represent Quebec and their opinions about Alberta independence and Saskatchewan independence than today's guest. So hang on right there before we get to him. If you're watching us on YouTube, you can get in touch with us via a super chat. If you're watching this later on in the day, maybe even into tomorrow or next week, you can send us a super thanks. That is a surefire way to be able to see, to be able to know that we will see your comment. It will get forwarded directly to us. So if you have feedback or you have opinions about things we're talking about, uh, a YouTube super chat or super thanks is the way to go. You can also do this over on Rumble. You can leave us a Rumble rant, same thing. You leave us a paid comment. We're going to see that comment and reply live on the air. But let us do not hesitate now to bring in the Buffalo panel guest we've all been waiting for. Our Quebec cousin, somebody that that can distill this for us. You know him better as the leader of the People's Party of Canada. Everybody, welcome Maxime Bernier. Welcome, Maxime.
Hello, everybody. I'm very pleased to be with you, ladies. That's my first time, and I believe it will be fun.
You're in for a wild ride, Maxime. All the props to you. It looks like you might have to hold up your gender equity card if you want to get a word in edgewise here. So don't hesitate to do that, Maxime. Okay, we can do that the other way too. But I wanted to start off today's program with a check on Alberta's political temperature. As calls for independence in Alberta grow louder and louder. Maxime Bernier recently published a piece in the Western Standard on his thoughts of this. And Maxime Bernier, just walk me through what this story is.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, when I was elected in Parliament and I was a Conservative MP, I used to deliver a lot of speeches across the country about the economy and the situation here in Canada. And I was called the Albertan from Quebec because, what I was saying and what I was believing, and I'm still believing in that, it's individual freedom and personal responsibility, less government on your back. And that's the same like Albertans and Westerners. They're fed up with a big fat government in Ottawa that is telling them what to do or what not to do. So, and at the same time also, I must admit that at the last referendum in Quebec in 1995, I did vote, and I did vote yes. I didn't vote yes to separate the country and for the independence of Quebec, but I voted yes at that time to send a strong message to Ottawa that enough is enough and Ottawa must respect the Constitution and provincial autonomy. And during that referendum, we had, federalists in Ottawa, the conservative, they were telling Quebecers in 1995, vote no and we'll change everything. You'll have more autonomy. But all that was a lie. And so after that referendum, we have a more centralized government in Ottawa than ever after 30 years. So that's why I understand what's happening in Western Canada. And that's why the People's Party decided to be on the side of the yes if there's a referendum in Alberta, and the yes side if there's a referendum in Quebec. Why? Because we need to create a constitutional crisis in this country for the Conservative Party of Canada and the Liberals to take our vote for what it is, more autonomy. Now the Conservative Party of Canada is taking the Western votes for granted. Poilievre is not speaking about the equalization formula, the fact that Alberta, for the last 61 years, are giving money to Eastern provinces. So for Ottawa, Alberta is an ATM machine, and they don't respect you. They don't respect also the fact that you want to develop your own natural resources. You want to have pipelines. So if you vote yes, what will happen? You will have a negotiating power. You'll have three options. The first one will be to sit with Ottawa and negotiate a new partnership like it was supposed to be in 1867. Or the second choice will be to be independent and a new country. Or the third one will maybe you'll be a 51st state. So if you vote yes in Alberta, that will open all these doors and you'll give more power to your premier to be able to negotiate something better. And I will be during that electoral referendum campaign. It may happen in October this fall. I will be with you guys and I will deliver speeches and tell Albertans to vote yes. And speaking about Quebec, in Quebec right now, we will have a provincial election in October of this year. And the PQ, the independentist political party with a new charismatic leader, is actually right now winning in the polls. And we may have a majority independentist provincial government. And the leader of the PQ is telling Quebecers that he will have another referendum on the secession during his mandate. So we
Sorry, Maxime, sorry to interrupt, but who is the leader of the PQ in Quebec, just for the Western viewers?
Paul Saint-Pierre Plamondon.
Plamondon. One of our rebel journalists, Alexa Lavoie, had an extensive sit-down interview with Mr. Palamont. So this is all very interesting. Tamara Lich, can I quickly throw to you? What do you think the importance is right now between the provinces in working collaboratively towards autonomy? Do you think that this is an important part of this process?
I absolutely do. And since my Freedom Convoy days, obviously, I've always thought that if the Quebecois and Albertans really got together and partnered up, I mean, we'd be an unstoppable machine. And nothing but respect for them. I think this is really important, as Mr. Bernier said, to start exercising our autonomy, to put our foot down and try and get some changes to Confederation so that we're treated equally across the country. And clearly, Alberta is not.
Yeah, same goes for Saskatchewan. Drea,
Yeah.
Humphrey, what would you like to say here?
Well, over in BC, I think we're at the end of this, but you never know. We've got center of BC, which is maybe a little bit more friendly to this, but I think Maxime Bernier hit it on the nail when he said Quebec has been sort of using Alberta, looking at Alberta as an ATM machine, and that has to change. They have to work together and benefit each other. And I totally agree that you're going to have more power in Alberta if you do go ahead and vote for this, and then you have more say. Basically, your voice can finally be heard, which is what has not been happening year after year after year.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Before we just go forward, we have a video, and this is from the Major Project Office. So this is the new federal institution that's going to take care of all of the new nation-building projects. And they say that nobody has come forward for a Pacific Oil pipeline, and it points to delays in the Alberta MOU. So for our seasoned viewers, Jeffrey Rath, no matter what you think of the guy, said on this program, when that MOU was being signed, that is a memorandum of underachievement. Nothing will come of this. It is going to get stalled. And look what happened. Olivia, could we show that video? And Maxime Bernier, I want to get your response right after seeing this. Go on.
I just wonder if the Prime Minister has given you any indication whether or not their promised pipeline to the Pacific is in the national interest.
Again, if he had said something to me privately, I'd be like the minister. I wouldn't be telling you. But I think it's if you read the Alberta MOU, you see the intention. You see the intention of the Pathways Plus project, which Pathways Plus is a strategy under the MPO, and it's the combination of getting the Pathways project done, which, as you know, is a carbon capture and storage pipeline, as well as carbon capture and storage, and then also being able to get the pipeline built. So it's a very positive strategy.
Yes, and I think, though, what the question that Canadians have, though, is the federal government's promise on the pipeline to the Pacific, which is critical to get Canada's most valuable exports beyond the U.S. markets. So I think Canadians are looking to see what actions the government has actually matched with those words. It seems indecipherable so far. Now, as you'll know from my interventions in the legislation and so far, it is absolutely the federal Crown's duty to consult with Indigenous people. I was glad to see the MPO has an Indigenous Advisory Board as well as a whole arm responsible for that. But so are you able, and I understand the parameters you've outlined, are you able to give any sense of whether any arm at the federal government has started any kind of consultation with Indigenous communities on potential routes for the pipeline to the Pacific? There have been ones proposed before. That is their job. It's not the MPO's job.
So just I have Rob Van Williken on the line with me, who heads up our Indigenous group, and he is our general counsel. Effectively, for us to take any sort of action, we need a proponent, and the proponent has to come forward, and there has so far not been a proponent yet of the pipeline.
Yes.
But once there is a proponent of the pipeline, and if we are asked by the Prime Minister to, if that project is referred to us and it's asked to be considered for designation, then Rob and his group are set up to be able to start those consultations to determine if a pipeline is in the national interest based on the 5 criteria. And that becomes a very fundamental step to get to that part in the Act where if that, along with all the other work that we at the MPO will do, determines that there is a decision to be made for designation, then the minister can take that forward and a project can be designated. If it
Yes.
is designated,
It is
it goes in the act.
Right, and it's exactly as you've outlined, which is why we Conservatives keep urging these Liberals to actually fix the laws and the regulations that all the pipeline proponents say must actually be fixed in order for them to take on the risk to try to propose a pipeline and to get it.
Maxime Bernier, might you have any idea why the federal government can't seem to get a pipeline built to the Pacific?
Because they don't want to. Actually, when I was listening to that, in the beginning, she said, we need to have a carbon capture and being
Yes.
sure everything will be okay. But I just want to say that carbon is not a pollutant. Carbon is essential gas for life. So I'm so tired to hear that carbon capture and spending billions of dollars to capture carbon when you don't need to do that. So that's why I don't believe that they will go ahead with pipelines. Also, because the only way to be able to have a pipeline is for the national government, the federal government, to use the Constitution. In our Constitution, we have the section 9210. And 9210, it's very important. Actually, we used that in the past, in the beginning, when we created that country, to have national infrastructure across the country. So when you use that clause in the Constitution, you pass a legislation in Parliament and you said this project or this pipeline is for the national interests of our country. And that's why we are invoking section 9210 of our Constitution. When they are doing that, the federal government will have full jurisdictions, will have full authority to build the pipelines. Quebec won't be able to stop that. Any province won't be able to stop that. The court won't be able to stop that. And First Nation won't be able to stop that. So the fact that Carney is not, first of all, putting a legislation in Parliament to build a pipeline and a project and to use that clause in the Constitution, it is a fact, it is a demonstration that they're not serious about that. And that's another reason why Albertans must vote yes at the next referendum if they want to have pipelines.
Interesting. Tamara Lich, you just heard that laundry list of reasons why the feds can't get stuff done in the West, whether it be environmental related. You heard Maxime Bernier say it, the carbon capture. Nobody's talking about the carbon capture portion of the pipeline. They're talking about extensive Indigenous consultation that can be viewed as a stonewall to progressing these projects. But what is the federal government got to do so that we can get our product to market?
Well, they need to get out of our way, essentially. I mean, the lady absolutely nailed it. The MOU was nothing but a letter of intent. And I think after 1 year of Mark Carney, Canadians are sick and tired, especially Albertans, of him signing away intentions, right? That he's signed agreements, he's signed MOUs, and nothing is concrete. Everything is in the future. And, how many tax dollars do we have to spend to have committees to consult, to meet with other committees to consult about this? I mean, it is literally just, a make work project, in my opinion. We need to get out of our way and we need to get our resources to market. Of course, it's in the best interest of the entire country, not just to the benefit of Albertans.
Yeah,
That was a whole bunch of word salad she said there.
Drea, Humphrey, they've created an entire federal infrastructure, to consult with the various levels of consultants and their consultants
Right.
to make sure that they have all of their I's dotted and all of their T's crossed. But how long does Ottawa expect the West to wait while they get all of their ducks in a row? How long do they expect us to wait, Drea, Humphrey?
Well, the MOU was supposed to be about accelerating this, but clearly that's not the intention. That's not the focus. So they're happy making everybody wait. Mark Carney has been amazing when it comes to offering lip service, promises. That's what we're seeing. the critics of this came out very strong right from the beginning. And I think we saw a slap in the face after the MOU came to be last year, when Mark Carney used words that were assertive, as though he was promising to do this, and then walked out immediately and said, well, nothing will happen without further consultation with Indigenous groups. That's not even what was written specifically in that type of way. So you're right, you're actually going to see roadblock after roadblock there. And I think to a certain extent, the federal government knows exactly that that's exactly what's going to happen,
That's right.
because this is not really a goal or priority of
That's
the
right.
Fed.
Maxime Bernier, if Ottawa really wanted to get in the way, could they activate their bureaucracy to put up stone walls and to sort of gatekeep projects like this? Tell us how Ottawa would respond if they didn't want Alberta and Saskatchewan to get a pipeline west.
Ottawa will respond like they're doing right now, just speaking about it, doing nothing. And absolutely, it's a little bit fascinating that you have the Prime Minister Carney that is very high in the polls right now, and but there's no action, there's nothing there. And the fact that the lady said in that video that they're waiting for a project, for a pipeline.
Right.
The Albertan government wanted to have that process clear to be able to have a project. But if they don't have the process clear and fast, no private sector corporation will come and said, I will build a pipeline. That's why Daniel Smith said, okay, this must be a priority. I want to see what will be the step 1 to the step 1, 2, 3, 4 before having a pipeline. And the federal government response said, oh, I won't tell you that because we don't have a concrete private sector project. So nothing will happen. And that's sad for Albertan. But like Tamara said, it's for all Canadians, because look what is happening with the war in the Middle East right now. Everybody wants to buy our oil and gas and all that. And we don't have any infrastructure to bring that to our shore and to sell it. We are missing a huge opportunity, and we will miss that opportunity for another couple of years.
Maxime Bernier, just real quick, you know how I mentioned at the start of the show that people could send chats and then we would read them on the air? Well, here's one for you, Maxime Bernier. This is from Snowy Roof, who gave $5 to say to Maxime Bernier, without a change in the voting system in Canada, the West will never have an equal say in Canada.
But actually didn't have any equal say right now. We can see that. You voted at 62% 6 years ago to abolish the equalization formula. That unfair formula, the fact that you're giving money to Eastern Canada for the last 61 years, you voted at 62% and nothing happened. So yes, right now the country is not functioning. And that's why you need to send a strong message to Ottawa. But for the Conservative, the NDP, the Liberals, everything is okay. Everything is okay. The status quo is okay. I'm looking forward to be on the stage in Alberta against, all these federalists, Poilievre and Carney, and telling the truth to Albertans. And I hope that they will vote yes. And if they vote yes, that may change everything in this country for the better, for Quebec, for Atlantic Canada. And I just want to add, when I was speaking about the equalization formula, that's $26 billion. So that, Alberta is paying here, and BC also, they're giving $26 billion to Eastern provinces. And my own province in Quebec received last year $13 billion. So half of that money is going to Quebec. Quebec is supposed to be a poor province, and we are not poor. I delivered speeches in Quebec 15 years ago, and in French, and I said to Quebecers that I'm not proud to be a Quebecer when we receive equalization money. We need to stop that. We need to work and have economic policies at the provincial level that will create wealth and growth for Quebec. But that's not the fact. And if you do a poll with Quebecers, a lot of them agree that, why receiving $13 billion? They don't
really.
is a poor province. So yeah, you need a pipeline. You need to change the equalization formula. We need a revolution in this country, a peaceful revolution, and that may happen this fall.
Thank you for adding the word peaceful onto that, Maxime Bernier. Should anybody have misinterpreted or had it got lost in translation, I'm real happy that you put that peaceful in there. I want to read a comment from P. Schofield 10. He is one of our most beloved viewers, and he says, Alberta, you might want to discount most of the promises from Ottawa should the referendum pass. The Liberals will do or say anything to keep the interprovincial theft. So this just backs up exactly what Maxime Bernier was saying. Sasquatch Chronicles, I see your comment. We're going to hold it for the end of the show for the Daily Delight, okay? We only have Maxime Bernier, who is a very busy man, as you might imagine. We only have him for a certain amount of time, and I really want to get his reaction next. Does anybody else have anything to add to that last story, or can we move along?
There's just one comment too, Mr. Bernier from
Please.
Snowy Roof, who donated $5 very much, says, to Maxime, without a change
Oh no,
in the...
this is the one we just read.
Oh, did you just read it? Okay,
yeah,
sorry.
And he responded. Yeah, he responded.
Nice
so no, yeah, no,
What?
it's okay.
Okay.
Drea Humphrey was checking the other chats while I was reading that one.
All right,
But,
you're on it.
Maxime Bernier, I really want to get your opinion about a recent announcement that the Bank of Canada governor, Tiff Macklem, recently put out. They are holding the key interest rate of the Bank of Canada at 2.25%. And Tiff Macklem says that rising energy and food prices are pushing inflation higher. Let's watch.
Governing Council maintained the policy interest rate at 2.25%. We've held the policy rate at this level since last October. We have three key messages today. First, Canada is being buffeted by global events and geopolitical uncertainties, but our economy is growing, and we expect it to continue to grow. Second, after more than a year with inflation close to the 2% target, higher global energy prices are pushing inflation up. The surge in gasoline prices, combined with still elevated food price inflation, is squeezing more Canadians. And third, monetary policy is focused on ensuring that the jump in energy prices does not turn into persistent inflation, while helping the economy adjust to global headwinds. We are committed to keeping inflation low and stable over time. Governing Council.
Maxime Bernier, do tell us what you think, because on one hand, I'm thinking to myself, well, my goodness, our economy must be doing so well. And in fact, Canada has the slowest growing economy in the entire G20 right now, I believe. Can you please make sense of what we just heard there, Maxime Bernier, please?
First, when he said that the inflation is around 2.2%, something like that, that's a lie. The real inflation, the way that they are calculating inflation, it's a lie. They have a basket of goods and services, but they don't put in that basket, some goods and services that the price is going up. We know that the real inflation, it's about 6%. Do your grocery, that. So we still have an inflation problems. And food inflation is very, dramatic in this country. But there's a solution for the food inflation. You abolish the cartel in dairy, poultry, and eggs. We are paying twice the price for dairy, poultry, and eggs if you compare that with the US. But Poliev, Carney, the Bloc Québécois, the NDP, the Green, they don't want to touch the cartel. They don't want to work for Canadian consumers. So if you're serious about reducing food inflation, you abolish that cartel first. And actually, you do that for Canadians, but you do that to be sure to have a good deal with President Trump, because the Americans are fed up with that cartel. They cannot export their milk, poultry, and eggs and cheese here in Canada. So food inflation, we can solve that. But when the Bank of Canada said our mission is to have a stable inflation in this country, they are not respecting their mission. They are creating inflation by printing money out of thin air. When you have inflation, it's not because the price of gas is going up. Because, stay with me, if you have the same amount of money in circulation in Canada and the price of a good is going up, a price of another good will have to go down. You won't have general inflation, but we have general inflation because the Bank of Canada is printing money. Why the Bank of Canada is printing money out of thin air? Because the federal government is making huge deficit. And, you know, the private market, the private investor, they don't want to buy our bonds because the interest rate is too low and the risk is too high. So the Bank of Canada has to print money and buy Canadian bonds and create inflation. So what he's saying, the economy is not going well. And just to finish with that, you're right about that. They said about the growth is good in this country, but the GDP. Thank you. The GDP per capita is negative. With mass immigration, we had a lot of people who came to our country. We had growth, but the growth per capita is negative. We are poorer this year than we were last year. So there's no growth for ordinary Canadians. That's all a lie.
This is verifiable by everybody with a heartbeat and a bank account in Canada, Maxime Bernier. We all are feeling the pressure of our government wildly overspending and sending our resources to other places when they don't have an interest in it, when they have no dog in the fight. Tamara Lich, do you think that the government is playing a shell game right now, just shifting from one thing to another and claiming wins where there aren't any?
Of course they are. That's really what, as I was talking about before, even that's really what we've been watching Mark Carney do for a year. It's just a lot of talking points and flying around the country and patting himself on the back for accomplishing absolutely nothing. Like Mr. Bernier just said, we are not better off now than we were 1 year ago when he was elected. So, you know, we need some progress. We need to see some action here and less talk, more action.
Yeah, Drea, Humphrey, go on. What Canada 1 year after Mark Carney, better or worse or neutral?
Worse. It's to be no surprise. I mean, one of the most mind-boggling things during the election coverage that I did was interviewing liberal supporters at Carney rallies who were saying they were going to support for Carney because Canada needs change. And I was like, what do you mean? How do you vote for the same party if you need change? And so, of course, we're seeing this. I mean, at the end of the day, politicians know. Sorry, Maxime Bernier, but they know that you can say certain
company excluded.
We're in good company.
Excluded. He's in a safe zone. He's in a bubble right now. Yeah, go ahead.
And you know what? We know you speak to issues that, you know, your colleagues do not. But at the end of the day, we know that politicians know that if you say things with a straight face, there is a vast majority of the population who's too busy to dive into things themselves that is just going to believe it. And then, of course, you have the mainstream media who's just going to report it as though it's true without pushing back on it. So the Liberals have been riding on that coattail for a decade, and Carney's no different.
That's right. Go ahead, Maxime.
I can just add, I agree with that, absolutely. Establishment politicians, they're doing politics by survey and polling. And so, yes, when they are lying to Canadians on a lot of issues, like, for example, the last big lie was COVID-19. But the more they are lying, or the more they have a talking point, for them, you know, the more they repeat it, the better it would be, because they think that Canadians are stupid. And you're right about that. Our big challenge that we have at the People's Party is people need to read our platform. We are there to educate Canadians. So, you know, I said to our candidates, you know, if you want to win an election, I know what to do. I was elected 13 years in Parliament. I know what to do. You said to Canadians what they want to hear that day, and you do polling. We don't do polling. We don't do any focus group. It's the same platform at each election. And our big challenge is, like you said, Canadians are not doing research. They're doing big research when they want to buy a new house or a new car, but when to vote, they won't read the platforms of these parties. So that's a big challenge for us. But, you know, we believe that Canadians are intelligent, and the more they will try to find the real information, the better it will be for us.
Thanks so much for referring to Canadians as intelligent, because so often we're treated like we're, like we need ruling over. And let it be clear, most politicians aren't smart enough to tell the rest of us how to live. But before we have to let you go, Maxime Bernier, because again, we know that you are a very, very busy man, I wanted to get your opinion on a. I'm going to drag the Pierre Poilievre moment where he is talking about training more tradespeople. Okay, he's at a press conference, and there's this little moment at the end, and because Maxime Bernier comes to us today from Quebec, this is a place that knows its fine alcoholic beverages. Pierre Poilievre says a thing, and I want to get our communal reaction to this presser that Pierre Poilievre was at. So, Olivia, could you pull up that clip for our friend Maxime Bernier so we can get his direct and instantaneous response? I just love this for us. I love this for all of us.
All thought that it was impossible for anyone to spend more recklessly than Liberal Justin Trudeau. And then along came Mark Carney and said, "Hold my champagne."
A quick follow, just on the topic of your shadow cap.
We all thought that it was impossible.
Okay, Maxime Bernier, tell us what you thought of that. Criticizing Mark Carney for being a champagne guzzler. What do you make of that?
But that's a real globalist, bureaucrat, and he likes, the first thing that he did when he was elected is traveling across the world, meeting all these leaders instead of working here in Canada for us. So on that, I must admit that Poilievre is right. He spent, and Carney is spending money like, there's no end, like it's coming from the sky. And we will have to pay. People are saying, our children and grandchildren will have to pay for that. Yes and no. It is us right now with the inflation that's creating inflation. And yes, our children will have to pay down the road also. But all these programs, what I don't like is these establishment politicians wants to buy vote. So they did a survey. They saw that training, Canadians, it's important. So we'll do that. But spending $6 billion for training, that's under the provincial jurisdictions. So, we are against that. First of all, the federal government doesn't have the money for that, and it's not under its jurisdiction. So when we are saying we must respect the Constitution, it's programs like that we must cut. Daycare, pharmacare, all these programs, they're under provincial jurisdictions. And I understand that in Alberta and Quebec, we want the federal government out of our business and respecting the Constitution. So we need that, like I said, peaceful revolution in this country.
That's right. Tamara Lich, are you a champagne drinker?
No, I am not a champagne drinker. Who can afford that in this economy? Who can afford that in this economy?
That's exactly right. Drea, Humphrey, was this moment for Pierre Poilievre was it a hit or a miss?
Well, I posted it and I asked people, is this funny or cringe? And people had very strong opinions about it. And a lot were like, oh, it's not a laughing matter and things like that. Sometimes I'm tough on Poilievre, but I thought that was very endearing. That was dad joke mode at its finest. And the way he had to look back to see, how his corniness was impacting his MP.
At his buddies. Yeah. And he was like, did you just hear the thing?
Yeah. Did you see what I did there? I thought it was definitely one of the better moments in politics. I thought it was cute. For
the first time only, you guys heard it here first. Maxime Bernier, listen, gave an accurate assessment of what he saw there. And Maxime Bernier, it is about time that we have to let you go off this program. But I want to tell you, our texts are lit up with messages for Maxime Bernier. For instance, one of our best viewers, Silver Feet, says he gave us $5 to just say this to you. Ready, Maxime Bernier? Maximum truth. People, our viewers loved seeing you here today. Thanks so much for joining us, and especially in this Lioness's Den on Western Wednesdays. But before you run away, Tell the people of Canada where they can find you, Maxime Bernier.
But first, I'm very happy that I had that opportunity to be with you today. That was fun, and I hope that if you have another ideas next time, I'll be willing to do that again. So, and if they want to know more about the People's Party, about myself, people can go on my X account, Twitter account, Maxime Bernier, or our People's Party of Canada.ca. That's our platform, our website. They can go there, they can read our platform, and if you like it, I hope you'll support us when the next election will come. And if you don't like our platform, don't vote for us, because we won't change. So I'm very honest with you, and I hope that I'm working hard for you guys out west to have the respect that you need from Ottawa, and the prosperity that you need also, and we need. So let's work together to be sure that that will happen. And thank you very much for having me today to your show.
Well, what an absolute pleasure it was for us. Everybody, thanks so much for sending so many checks to Maxime Bernier. We're going to go to a quick break, and we'll be back right after this.
Gun bans make great distraction.
Trudeau may be gone, but Carney has picked up his same rhetoric.
We will quickly, and I mean quickly, reinvigorate the buyback of
Hunters, collectors, competitors, and defenders of tradition are still being targeted, while criminals run wild under Liberal policy. But we are fighting back. Join us, Canada's National Firearms Association, in defense of freedom.
Canadians know the national anthem. They stand in silence to remember those who died for this country. But not every Canadian knows their rights and freedoms. The Freedom Passport will change that. It looks and feels like a Canadian passport, but contains the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms in a portable, easy-to-read format. The Freedom Passport. Order one for yourself and for all the freedom lovers that you love at freedompassport.ca.
Are you 18 to 30, curious, ambitious, and tired of cookie-cutter journalism? Then listen up. I'm Sheila Gunn Reid. I'm the chief reporter at Rebel News, but I'm also the president of the Independent Press Gallery. And I'm excited to tell you that applications are now open for the 2026 Student Journalism Conference, a 3-day, all-expenses-paid training experience in Toronto, August 28th to 30th. That means your travel, your hotel, and your meals are all covered. You just bring the drive. This isn't a lecture hall snooze fest. It's hands-on reporting, real-world skills, practical training, and direct access to experienced independent journalists who know how the media landscape in Canada actually works. This year's theme is citizenship and civil liberties, two issues that matter now more than ever. You'll also compete in a live collaborative reporting challenge, creating a real journalism project with a chance to win the grand prize. And here's the big part. Past graduates are now working in independent media organizations all over Canada, building careers, breaking stories, and making a difference. Only 20 applicants will be selected, so the competition is real. Deadline to apply is June 14th. If you've got grit, curiosity, and something to say, apply now at studentjournalismconference.com. Canada needs more journalists who ask tough questions. Maybe one of them is you.
Now, if you know someone, a young person who would be great as a journalist, please go to that site, studentjournalismconference.com. I want to just quickly tell a story. I ran into one of those young people who actually went to our conference. I think this person said 3 years ago, and they're actually currently working with a mainstream media outlet. I will not, of course, say that. And they said, but boy, are they just waiting to break through and get to do something more rebellish. So yeah, I think it's so great that that something like that is available.
Mm-hmm.
And before we continue on, we have an ad read, and Tamara Lich certainly knows a lot about the need for this when it comes to seizing accounts. And this ad read is from Rumble Wallet. It says they can freeze your account, shut off your cards, lock you out of your own money overnight. Banks don't protect you, they control you. That's why real financial freedom starts with ownership. Introducing Rumble Wallet, a non-custodial wallet built for people who refuse to give up control. With Rumble Wallet, you don't just buy digital currency like Bitcoin and Tether, you can own Tether gold, real gold on the blockchain. Through Tether Gold, you get direct ownership of physical gold bars, each one fully allocated, verifiable by serial number, purity, and weight. This isn't paper gold. This isn't an IOU. This is real gold without bank vaults, storage fees, or gatekeepers. You can buy, sell, or move it 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, even when the traditional gold markets are closed. And if you want, Tether Gold can be redeemed for physical gold. That's power. And when you support creators on Rumble, you can tip them directly using Rumble Wallet, peer-to-peer and outside the banking system. No permissions, no middleman, no cancel button. This wallet is yours forever.
I don't know about you guys, but I could listen to Drea Humphrey read a phone book. And I would
Absolutely.
her whole aura is just so comforting to me. I don't know
Thank
what
you.
it is about Drea Humphrey, but well, she's the Rebel Viewers Choice journalist. She's an award-winning journalist, and listen, I just want to hear more of you talking, Drea Humphrey. So
Maybe it's the fact that I'm still wearing my pajama pants since it's still morning over here. That's why I make you feel so comfortable.
we divulged what we wore where the camera can't see. This
Yeah.
will be an entirely different kind of show.
I know I'm not the only one.
Just like that's just a
Yeah.
little bit of inside baseball for you guys just watching and okay, so let's get away from that right away. I really quickly wanted to bring up this comment from Independent Alberta who gave us $5 and said this. Okay, checked a local Canadian Tire for Alberta flags, almost sold out at full price. The Canadian flags at half price are fully stocked. After October 19th, I'm calling the store Alberta Tire, and I love this for us. Freedom Tire. Okay, we're going to need to rename all the things. And I suggest that we get rid of the word Canada and we get rid of the word trans. Okay, the Trans Canada pipeline was failed from the very beginning based on its very name. Okay, and this is one of the first things that we're going to do in the new country. That's one of my favorite little daydreams is what we're going to do first in the new country. But guys, I wanted to quickly, well, not even quickly, but seriously talk to you guys about a controversial decision to halt the deportation of the Humboldt Broncos crash driver. It's raising difficult questions about justice, compassion, and consistency in Canada's legal system and how institutions handle the public response. So I think Olivia has a piece here that covers this topic. Jessicrat Singh Sidhu was the person responsible. He was an Indian national, permanent resident of Canada in the days leading up to the terrible accident of 10 years ago. It happened in January. He was found to have committed 70 safety violations in the immediate couple of days before this incident. Although Jessicrat Singh Sidhu and it was just such a terrible accident. He was driving a semi full of peat moss, heavy peat moss. He was distracted by a flapping tarp on his load and crossed an intersection where the Humboldt Broncos team bus was driving. 13 members of that team were killed. 16 were terribly injured. The consequences of this have just have not been more tragic for the town of Humboldt, Saskatchewan. And just for the record, real quick, full disclosure, this is my husband's hometown. Humboldt, Saskatchewan is the city that my husband was born and raised in. And to say that this entire event for 10 years has had really devastating consequences on that town, on the people involved, it would be an understatement. It's had such long legs. Not the least of which is that the man responsible has been given 10 extra years to plead his case in Canada, and now a judge named Jocelyn Gagne, 3 days ahead of his deportation, ruled that he gets yet another chance. This comes to us from the Daily Mail in Britain, one of the biggest daily news drivers in the world. And he claims I can hardly even read this. It makes me so upset. The reason he was able to stay in Canada is because his lawyer claimed that he might unalive himself if he sent back to India, and using that kind of emotional manipulation against these families. To say to these families, if you keep pressing him to leave the country because you don't want to, run into him at the grocery store or ever see his face again, that you might be saddled with the death of what I think the parents have good understanding of how that might feel. Tamara Lich, you'd know a thing or two about the trucking industry and the things that have been happening these last couple of years. Will you tell us your opinion of what's happening here?
Well, I think this is really re-traumatizing these poor families all over again. And, we're talking about a man that hadn't been here that long. He hasn't really contributed to our society. I don't know why they want to keep him here. And, when did Canada cross that threshold? Because indeed we have. If you look at a lot of the rulings that are happening now, the reduced sentences that we're seeing, when did our judiciary start siding with the victims? The victims, Canadian victims of violent crimes and horrible accidents like this, preventable accidents like this, are the ones that are being sacrificed at the altar of this virtue signaling nonsense. I refused Gladue when I was being sentenced. They wanted to do that with my pre-sentencing report, and I refused it because I think it's a racist policy, and the policies like that should not be put in place. You should not be judged differently because of the color of your skin, because of the God you worship, because of how much money you make, or because of the job you have. Like I said at the beginning of the show, we should all be equal under the eyes of the law, and our judiciary has lost its way. And the ones that are going to suffer the most are the families of the victims.
You're right. Drea, Humphrey, how do you see the judiciary? Do you think that the judiciary is responsible for for aggravating the families over these years, or do you think that there might have been a better way to handle this?
Well, I mean, his defense is going to argue whatever defense they're going to argue to try to get him to stay. But the fact that we have a judge that actually is giving him another chance. I mean, 16 lives were taken. I believe
13. Yeah.
I think it's 16.
Or is it 16 and 13? No.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
I thought it was 16 too, actually.
Yeah.
Oh, is it that? Oh, did I get the numbers inverted? My apologies.
No, no worries. We can.
Yeah, it says deportation halted for Indian who killed 16 because he has
16.
PTSD.
Yes, sorry.
So,
my profuse apologies.
No worries. It's 13 who were injured. That's what you're thinking.
Thank
but
you.
16,
Yes.
mostly kids. He only had a week of training. Everything Tamara Lich said was good, except for one thing. He did contribute a lot to Canada. This is what he contributed. And Canada needs to be firm on shutting that down right away. And the other thing about him that came out in this ongoing trial that he's had is that he had something like 70 different violations that were recorded at work.
In the immediate weeks before the incident. Yes.
70 different things this guy was doing wrong in his job. 70 different times to sit back and say, I need more training. This isn't the right job for me, or what have you. Of course, he's going to feel some level of depression for killing all these people, but he still has to go. That's not our issue. And we just need to be firm on this. It's appalling.
Well, and I think that the inability for the government to be able to handle this in any kind of time-sensitive way has really contributed to the downgrade of the trucking industry and people's perception of it in the country. Because if this guy would have been used sort of as a poster child of if you violate Canadian law, this is what could happen to you. Well, I think that would have determined how other foreign truck drivers treated our country when they were guests in it, but that did not happen. So further to this story, our friends over at the Western Standard are digging in a little bit deeper to this story, and let me tell you that when you have an event like this that has so many families involved, the layers of complexity just can't be understood at the beginning. It's only with retrospect that you can sort of piece together what happened. Tamara Lich is doing the same thing with how she was treated in Ontario. Like when things are so complex, it takes a long time for the truth to get out. And our friends at the Western Standard, they released this little piece of information, which I think is really interesting. They discovered that the CBC, you know them, the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, archived their coverage of the Humboldt Broncos crash and forwarded them to security specialists on the inside of the CBC. And now gather round, children. I've lived 10 years to drop these little seeds of a story, because one of my favorite things in media is like big stories don't ever come to us fully formed. Okay. Every big story, Drea, Tamara, back me up on this, starts as a wee little thread that you start to pull on, and and then all of a sudden you have an entire Afghan in your lap. Okay, this is one of these stories. Back in the day of the Humboldt Broncos crash, the CBC was reliant, just like they were in COVID, on a series of experts that maybe weren't the most credible, that maybe weren't the best qualified to guide the people of Humboldt through this tragedy, and who maybe had some, we'll just say, some motivations that fell outside of what was happening in the tragedy. We all saw the CBC doing this exclusively throughout COVID. You remember when we all realized at the same time throughout COVID that CBC panels of experts were all full of crap, all of them? Remember when we all sort of went, wait a sec, like their teams, their networks of experts seem to all be lying to us about the same thing. Would you believe it if I told you that the experts the CBC relied on at the time of the Humboldt Broncos bus crash were probably not the people that should have been handling that situation, and that the fallout. So what I see happening here is the people of Saskatchewan and the people of Canada were criticizing the CBC in their defense of whatever they were talking about at the time. And so the CBC, in response, responded in a way that drove the narrative in the direction of the driver and away from the best interests of the families and the best interests of what was happening in Saskatchewan. And if I were to give a word of advice to our friends over there at the Western Standard, who I know are eager to look into this story more, I would very, very quickly learn more about the experts that the CBC had working on this file, you guys, because what you find, I am telling you, they are going to have a Saskatchewan-sized Afghan based on that thread that they pull. And I can't wait for it to get all of the sunshine in the world. But do tell me, you guys, let me get your reactions to this. Do we believe that it's within the realm of possibility that the CBC developed and drove the narrative and then abused the very people that were giving them the accurate feedback on the story? Like, is it within the realm of possibility that the CBC could have done this?
Well, in my experience, absolutely. And, imagine these poor families. So imagine, growing up being told that the CBC is for Canadians, covering Canadian issues, helping Canadians. And then, they must feel so betrayed by the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation for trying to frame this man as a victim. The result of his actions and negligence resulted in the deaths of teenage boys, families. Oh, I got a little grandson popping in here. Yeah, I mean, I think they've been horribly betrayed by the CBC, and as have other Canadians. To try and frame this gentleman now as the victim of this is rather disgusting.
And just real quickly, the most concerning thing, it's like, what kind of demons are working at these news outlets where you have mostly kids, be killed in a situation like this, and you're worried about protecting some sort of narrative that isn't even the truth. And again, it reminds me of the Tumbler Ridge shooter, where we had City News airbrushing the killer's face to make the trans killer look more like a woman because they didn't. I mean, what is wrong with media where it appears not just one person is doing that, but collectively people behind the outlet are getting behind such practices?
Yeah, well, there was a shocking lack of empathy for the families, and continues to be, they were, let's just say there was a mechanism of control and management over the families at the time, and even still now, like this even extends till now, where they, their experience and their lived experience through one of the most horrible things that could happen to a family happened. And
Yeah.
Drea Humphrey, to answer your question, who's working at some of these media outlets? Soulless, childless cat women who have never had children of their own, who have had abortions instead of children, and who have no empathy for what their actions do to families. That's who. That's who. Anyway, that was a hard story, and your continued thoughts and prayers, especially for the
Yeah.
people of Humboldt, Saskatchewan, and more specifically the families of those boys that were injured and killed, are always appreciated from you, Rebel Fam. And so we'll take those and pass them along to the CBC, or excuse me, past the CBC, because we know that the CBC
Hey.
doesn't do that at all.
In
So-
church,
I don't think they take our calls. I don't think they take our calls, Lise.
in church on Sunday, my pastor reminded us the need to pray for
Your
you know,
enemies.
your enemies and your kings and your people in authority and in positions of power. So that includes the liberals. As hard as it is, you got to keep them in prayer.
You got to keep them in prayer and also keep them accountable, because
Yes.
if we don't, then absolutely nobody will. So, okay, guys, we are going to, now that we covered the heaviest part of our show, can we go to, Drea Humphrey? We need to talk about Frances Widdowson. Okay, if it was up to me, I'd be talking about Frances Widdowson all day, every day. And Drea Humphrey, I was hoping that you could give us an update on the saga of Dr. Frances Widdowson, Canadian hero and freedom fighter, please.
Well, in case you missed it, PhD Dr. Frances Widdowson was arrested again. I believe this is her fourth time. It is fourth arrest on Canadian university soil, proving that freedom of speech is not free in universities. All she is doing is wanting to have civil discussions surrounding the false claim that forever changed Canada, that the remains of 215 children had been discovered when they had not at the former Kamloops Indian Residential School. And here she is having a discussion quietly in the cafeteria. No one's around. She didn't draw attention to herself,
Just
do a public
existing.
announcing.
Here's a woman existing in the wild.
Right. She was talking about, positions on there, and they came and they arrest her. And the reason is, even though she didn't really advertise that she was coming to Lethbridge to have this discussion with whoever wanted to sit with her and talk, the faculty of Lethbridge University put out a notice deeming her a health and safety risk. And that is what happened when she came in and sat to try to talk.
Well, I mean, this is nightmare fuel to me. Here we have a little lady, and Frances Widdowson is a wiry, feisty little lady. She is, Frances Widdowson's spirit animal is a honey badger. Okay, she is just a little wiry, quick thing.
Yeah.
But to see her dragged out by uniformed officers for thinking things that the university is uncomfortable with. Tamara Lich, take it away.
Yeah, it's really disappointing, and I think it's really alarming, but it's really indicative of where we're at in Canada. Our university campuses and college campuses are supposed to be bastions of free speech. That's where you're supposed to be able to go and express opinions that maybe other people don't like in the name of debate.
Yes.
And so to see absolute censorship on a university campus for a lady that is literally asking questions and just wants to get to the truth is quite disturbing and very alarming. And I can't believe it's been 4 arrests already.
Yeah, no, really, there has to be an end to this madness. Nature is healing, though. Again, from the Western Standard, it was reported yesterday that a person that had committed $150,000 to the University of Lethbridge as a gift decided against that after seeing Francis. You know what?
Wow.
You know what that little stunt cost you? University of
150,000.
Lethbridge, $150,000. Also, every
That's what
single
it'll take.
parent well, it's gonna because they need to learn the consequences of their actions. Frances Widdowson has been mercilessly persecuted for her thought crimes over these last several years and has run the gauntlet. But here's the thing: women like Frances Widdowson have a way of waiting it out. Just have a way of waiting it out. She sees how crazy this is, and that's what she's exposing. And I believe that this will all go Frances Widdowson's way. And the University of Lethbridge is learning a lesson the hard way, and so they should.
And just real quick, you can catch my interview with Dr. Widdowson about being handcuffed and arrested the fourth time at kamlutzdocumentary.com. But I think a big day is going to be the 5th anniversary, which is May 27th, of that false claim out of Kamloops. Again, 0 bodies in 5 years ever produced. And Widdowson is planning to go to the legislature to, demand truth and transparency there. So should be interesting.
Oh, I so look forward to that, Drea. I so look forward to your interview because the more, it's not easy for me to see somebody that looked like my grandma being carted away by oafs in uniforms. Okay. It is not easy for me. Actually, it's torturous. When I really think about it, it is, watching that is torturous. So Drea Humphrey, next time you see or talk to Dr. Frances Widdowson, you just tell her that she has my every support. Yeah, this makes me sick. They put her in the back of this paddy wagon. Just wait. And the best part of this is Frances Widdowson never stops talking to these guys.
No.
She is literally chatty cat. Well, I have concerns about the safety of listen, people have been killed in the back of paddy wagons when they're not properly restrained. They just put her in the back and close the doors. I hope somebody safeguarded her. Okay, she's a little woman. She deserves that.
Yeah.
You needed to send
Nobody sits with feet back there.
They had to send their biggest vehicle to collect the littlest lady. I think that's overkill and it's gross. And I'm so happy that the people of Canada are bearing witness to the struggles of Dr. Frances Widdowson right now. So, Drea Humphrey, thanks so much for that work. Thanks so much for that work. The people of Canada. Listen, you're going to be viewer's choice again if you're not careful.
Oh gosh. I'm not kidding.
Everybody's already pre-voting. I can tell they're putting it in their phone. There was a couple of chats. This is amazing. Olivia, we need to end the show off on a happy note. I insist on sending people into the last part of the week on a happy note. Okay, so we're going to have a daily delight. Olivia, could you find on the internet the footage of the Canadian anthem being sung in Buffalo, New York?
Oh, yeah.
Really recent. It was amazing and so heartwarming. And we just want to show what lovely international relations can be created through the magic of sport in the world. So everybody, welcome to your Rebel News Sports Report with Tamara Lich and Drea Humphrey and Lise Merle. We are unconventional sports reporters, but we're here if you guys are talking about these things. And this was actually brought to our attention by one of our super chats. And this is from Sasquatch Chronicles, who sent us $9.99. Buffalo NHL fans singing Canada's national anthem when the mic fails, and they sang the non-woke version. Beautiful, he says. Beautiful. I guess Carney's words about us getting. Sorry, I just butchered this because I'm not wearing my glasses. I guess Carney's words about us being your greatest enemy fell on deaf ears in the US. So watch this, guys. Listen to this little cutie. She's singing the anthem, and then the worst thing happens for a singer. Her mic goes blank. Okay, watch what happens.
Oh, Canada, our home and native.
Oh.
Canadians didn't hesitate. On point.
Sun's command.
Strong from far and wide, okay, and on guard.
Can't stop the anthem. It still goes strong.
Oh.
That's beautiful. But
Yeah,
Mhm.
when's the last time you saw a Canadian audience singing with that much passion? It's really a sight to behold. I do have to say that for that singer, okay, in that moment, that
yeah,
singer
it's mortifying.
would have
That's
been
mortifying.
she would have thought to herself, "My God, here was my big chance to sing in front,"
Yeah.
you know, here's a, and my heart goes out to her as a media person. When those
Yeah.
kind of failures happen, you're just sort of at the, and the way that Buffalo, New York showed up for her, really did Canadians proud. To Buffalo, New York, from the Buffalo panel here at Rebel News, thank you so much for that moment. It was just such a sweet moment.
Yeah.
Does anybody else want to talk about sports?
No.
Okay.
I'm
Do
good.
We're here for the heartwarming moments of sports and like little else. You know what I mean? Who won the game? I don't know. I don't beats the crap out of me. We'll find out probably from the comments when a man will chime in about the sports things. Do we have any other chats that we're aware of? Oh, here we go. Okay, so P. Schofield, again, one of our favorites from Colorado, sends us $10 and says, this loops back to Maxime Bernier. I quickly want to get your guys' impressions of Maxime Bernier, but P. Schofield says, I've always liked Bernier. It will be interesting to see if his enemies come out more to oppose Alberta's sovereignty than his friends will do to support it. An unseen wild card introduced, and you guys saw it right here on the Rebel Roundup today. Hey guys, can we quickly just talk about Maxime Bernier being on this show today? I thought he was delightful. His hair was great.
Okay,
Maxime,
right? That's
go.
what I said in the chat. I said, why does
Does
his
have
hair
great
look
hair.
so cool? It's growing in this nice white hair that's got the color on top. It was pretty cool looking.
I wasn't mad about it. Tamara Lich.
No, I thought he did great, and I think the Quebecois have a lot to contribute to the conversation on sovereignty and independence, and well, Sheila wrote a book on it, essentially. So I think it's great to get their perspective, and especially to have the support like that, it means a lot.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. We should be working cooperatively amongst provinces because we can't trust the federal government to manage that relationship, can we? I think they've proven they're not ever gonna. Hey, you girls, this might have been my favorite episode of the Buffalo panel ever yet. I know I say this every week. I know I do. But could you tell the people where they can find you? Tamara Lich, go first. Tell the people where they can find you, not on this show.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. You can find me on X at Leach Tamara. You can find me on Facebook, although I don't use it that much anymore because it's gotten so lame. And Substack. And Chris Barber and I also host a show every Thursday night, a live stream called House Arrest on YouTube, and you can find that on all of the same platforms. We have Dr. Francis Christian joining us tomorrow night, so we're pretty excited about that.
Ooh, that's going to be an interesting conversation. I love your new podcast with Chris, by the way. It is a
Thank
very,
you.
I feel right at home, like being in the middle of two Saskies listening to your podcast. So yeah, everybody go listen to Tamara Lich's new podcast. Drea, Humphrey, tell the people of Canada what you're up to right now.
Right now,
yeah.
Right now, I'm giving one of our editors a comment. I'm answering his question.
Okay.
Yeah, I've got a lot going on. There's an interview coming up with a lady who's kicked off of her kid's school for not going along with the land acknowledgement. So that's still happening in British Columbia. And of course, I've been really busy bringing the people of British Columbia interviews from the campaign trail for the leadership race for the Conservative Party of British Columbia.
Nobody works harder in journalism in British Columbia than our very own Drea Humphrey.
Oh, stop it.
I'm not joking. You can't stop me from pumping your tires. Okay, I'm just gonna update from our friend Dave in the control room or near the control room. Boston over Buffalo 2-1 in overtime. I think they actually sang the non-woke version in All Thy Sons Command. You're right, Dave. They did. Hey, everybody, this has been a spectacular morning. I hope you enjoyed the program. We're going to be back here tomorrow, same place, same time. And until next time, in the words of the great Sheila Gunn Reid, who couldn't be here today, if you're offended by how we talk or what we look like or what we say or our thoughts or opinions, maybe you don't find us at all.
Alberta is at a crossroads. For years, I've heard the frustration. I've felt it too, but frustration doesn't build a country. Preparation does. In my new book, Independence Blueprint, What Alberta Can Learn from Quebec, I break down the hard mechanics of sovereignty, what we can learn from Quebec's 1995 referendum, the research that's already been done, and what would actually come next for a free Alberta. There's the constitutional process, currency, pensions, continuity of services, trade, resource control, Indigenous partnership, and international recognition. These aren't slogans. This isn't fantasy. These are just hard facts and serious preparation. Whether Alberta stays or goes, we need to understand the stakes. Head over to buy your copy today at independenceblueprint.ca. Let's be prepared, because our time is now.